Welcome to the Mondi Group e-commerce briefing. Our webinar aims to unwrap e-commerce logistics and packaging industry insights. Each episode will last 30 minutes, and we plan to interview as many experts as possible. My name is Nedim Nisik, Mondi Group e-commerce director, and I will be the host of this webinar series. At Mondi, we are focusing on e-commerce and offering a multi-material portfolio to our customers, including corrugated boxes, paper bags, craft, and functional barrier paper. Setting a scene for today's episode, we will talk about sustainability, which is one of the most important trends in the world. Meeting nowadays start and end with discussions on sustainability. It has an impact on all of us, both as humans who live on this planet and as business people who are trying to navigate this maze of information that is being gathered and processed daily. It has an impact on companies that are trying to reach the targets that they set for themselves, ultimately measured by CO2 reduction. It is an intriguing and challenging topic, and most importantly, an overarching one. It has a major impact on e-commerce companies. Our first guest is Susan Brunner. Susan is leading product sustainability and positioning for Mondi Group, working to achieve our product commitments under MAP 2030 and building capacity through our internal sustainability training academy. Susan also leads our sustainability reporting and manages our engagement in multiple global partnerships, such as the World Food Programme, the Four Evergreen Alliance, and EMF, among others. Her official title is Head of Product Sustainability and Positioning for Mondi Group. Welcome, Susan, and thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Thank you for inviting me, Nedim. My pleasure.
Susan, my first question. Your initial answer to sustainability questions is famous at Mondi. The answer is it depends. What is the story behind it?
Thanks for the question. Yes. Um, the reason why I'm so often quoted, or why I've always answered with "it depends," is because I've often been asked over the years, which one is better? So, is paper always better than plastic? Does plastic always have a lower carbon footprint, but paper's always the better material, and so on? And looking for these sort of absolute answers. Um, and the reality is, you can't give any sort of a credible answer without looking at a specific application. So you really have to compare apples with apples, yeah, when you make such an analysis. That's why my answer to these kinds of questions of which is better is always it depends. It depends on the application. It depends in terms of impact, where the product is being produced, what the energy sources are. There are no, I'd say, generic answers that are credible, yeah, on a material level.
Right. Businesses and NGOs have been focusing on sustainability agenda for some time now. For how long have we been focused on it, and where are we at on the maturity curve?
So Mondi set its first greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets back in 2005, based on a 2004 baseline. We published our first sustainability report in 2007. All of that's still available online, by the way. So we've been focused on sustainability for a very long time, and doing also transparent reporting on our progress. Um, in terms of where we are, I think we are quite mature. I think we are perceived as a leader in sustainability. Um, I always say it's easier to cite the external ratings and rankings rather than just me saying we're a leader in sustainability. So if I think about CDP, which we think is one of the most important platforms out there, we've been on the A list for 3 years now, globally there, and also for Sustainalytics, in the paper and pulp industry, we are number one by Sustainalytics, also a very important platform for analysts. EcoVadis is another platform where we're platinum rating number one, so top 1% globally. And a new one that came out last year was the World Benchmarking Alliance did a new nature benchmark. And there we were also in the top 10 and number one in our sector. And even on reporting, we've received multiple reporting awards where it have been now for 5 years running under WBCSD, so the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. I tend to use
Mhm.
abbreviations very fast. But WBCSD has a reporting matters ranking showing best reporters globally, and Mondi's been there in the top 10 also for a number of years running. So we're doing the right thing, and we're talking about it in a very transparent way. So I think that's the key to success if you want to be positioned as a leader in sustainability.
Right. And how about us as an industry as a whole, paper and packaging industry? Where are we at now? The same question, just applying to the whole of industry.
Yeah. I mean, I can refer here to some CEPI statistics. So CEPI is the Confederation of European Paper Industries. And they've come out with some statistics, for example, that our sector, the pulp and paper sector, has cut carbon emissions by 27% since 2005. And even more important though than that, I think, is that we are the largest industrial generator of renewable energy in Europe. So we have 62% of our energy is biomass based. And I think that's a very, very important contribution from our whole sector. If I take the packaging and container view, so looking at the plastic side of our business, I think there is still a lot of progress we need to do, though, particularly around the recyclability of plastic. Our focus, and I think the whole sector is focused looking at monomaterial solutions to facilitate collection, sorting, recycling systems. That's a very important lever and step that we need to take to go forward, and we need to help to develop that infrastructure for the improved and more availability of PCR, so post-consumer recycled plastic, be it mechanically recycled or chemically recycled. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but I think we're on the right path.
This was going to be my next question anyway. As someone who has been focusing on the sustainability for some time now, are you satisfied with the progress that we as an industry have made?
I have to say, as a sustainability professional, I could never be satisfied with the progress that we've made to date. There's still a lot for us all to do. We need collective action to drive progress here. I think our sector is taking the right steps in terms of focusing on energy, particularly energy efficiency, using renewable energy, using renewable resources, which is one of the key advantages of fiber-based solutions. But still, there's quite a bit of action that we need to take. We need to accelerate that action, and we need to work across the entire value chain to drive that progress.
Got it. And what do you see as the biggest challenges in the implementation of sustainability programs going forward?
I think, I mean, if I speak more generically now, again, not just on Mondi specific, obviously the legislative landscape is evolving rapidly. I call it, and I've seen others call it, a legislative tsunami. Yeah, so many different aspects coming at us, from a packaging and packaging waste directive to corporate sustainability reporting directive and the ESRS, the European Sustainability Reporting Standards that are coming. Lots and lots of new requirements. So that's one thing that is certainly quite a big challenge for everyone in the sector. In principle, I think for our sector and for all companies, it's that we need to set science-based targets. Companies need to understand what that entails to set those science-based targets, and we need to have programs in place to drive that progress, and also to be able to report on it. So this also includes having investment plans, so that the time for making claims to say we are going to go net zero, but without having a plan in the background, those days are over.
Is there a mechanism or an agency that is tracking the action items set forward by these companies and ensuring that these action items are enough to reach the targets?
Mhm. So again, it depends on whether you are reporting under which framework you're reporting. Yeah, we are a UK listed company, so UK legislation applies, but obviously we have many sites in Europe, so we also fall under the European sustainability reporting standards for some of our sites. at the end of the day, what is expected is that companies make commitments and trying to show progress against it, particularly for net zero. There's an expectation also and a requirement legislative wise to have a transition plan that you need to publish. So that's one big piece of the puzzle. But if you ask about who's checking, who's making sure that the companies are doing these things, um, part of the sustainability requirements in future is to have third party assurance. Of your sustainability reporting. So, of what you say in your report, but also the data that you share, where that data comes from, and that it is accurate. Also, that the what you're stating in your report is accurate in terms of your progress. So Mondi has had third-party assurance on our GHG and energy KPIs to a reasonable level already for many years. There's two levels of assurance without getting too complicated here. And then limited assurance for our entire report that it's in line with GRI and SASB and all of the other statements that we have in there. So we've been doing third-party assurance for many years now, but it will become a more general requirement for all companies in future. Also to give, I think, people who are reading the reports, if that's an investor, an analyst, a customer, or a consumer, to give them more, I'd say, assurance, that not to use the same word again, but more confidence that what is in those reports is accurate and true. Yeah. And to really try to take away those fears of greenwashing, of many companies making lots of claims without anything to back it up.
What are the most frequently asked questions by the e-commerce customers?
Um, I almost want to ask you to answer this question, if I'm honest.
I could also answer, but you and your team are present
Yes.
in our meetings with customers. You are supporting us on this part of the relationship with them. So from this perspective, what do you see as the main points of the conversation?
I mean, I think there's a couple. It always depends on the particular customer and their concerns. But I think one of the key issues in general is, of course, the responsible sourcing. Yeah. So how do we ensure that we're putting a responsibly produced product out there? So if it's fiber-based packaging, we know it's renewable materials. It comes from trees. But how can we be sure that it's been responsibly managed from responsible forests and legally harvested and so on? So understanding how that can be done in terms of certification and the availability of different certification schemes in particularly in Europe, that's one of the very common questions that we get about how do we do that, right? Because the scandals are quick to appear. The environmental NGOs are doing a great job of staying on the heels of those that are making exaggerated claims or not doing their homework properly. So that is one very common question. Of course, also customers want to understand the implications of the evolving legislation and those types of around, particularly around the packaging and packaging waste regulation as well. But those would, I'd say, would be two sort of key concerns. And the third one is, of course, related to carbon impact. So understanding the impact of a particular solution also in comparison to another solution. So how can we collectively drive down our greenhouse gas emissions across the supply chain? Because every time we make an improvement as Mondi, we pass on that improvement, of course, to our customers. And working with our suppliers, when they improve, they help us to improve our performance.
Exactly, exactly. All fun topics. And maybe we start, maybe we now dig a little bit deeper into these topics, and we can start with the wood certification, FSC versus PEFC. This is one of those topics frequently discussed, and why many still prefer FSC.
Yeah, I mean, I think many brands, some brands have made specific commitments to FSC, to only source FSC certified wood. And this is something where I think we do need to have a conversation on that in Europe. It's important to understand that globally, only 11% of the world's forests are certified. Yeah. So that's not a lot, right? And there are areas that are dual certified across multiple schemes. If we take Europe in particular, it's about 59% of the forests in Europe are certified, and the vast majority of those are in fact PEFC certified. So the national forest schemes are certified to PFC often, and the reason for that goes back to the origins. So FSC was initially founded, I think it was 1993, by NGOs, targeted though for tropical environments, so tropical forests, how to prevent deforestation in tropical forests. So it wasn't really suitable for Europe or North American forests. And so a few years later, in the late 90s, PEFC, which is the Program for the Endorsement of Forest Certification Schemes, FSC is Forest Stewardship Council. We didn't explain that at the beginning. PEFC was then founded. So it was
Mhm.
founded by forest owners, which are primarily small certificate holders in Europe, so owned plots in Europe in particular, founded PEFC for the European context here. But there's still a perception, and that is also promoted then by NGOs, that FSC is the better certification scheme in their view. Um, we have to say that we see that in Europe, where we have good legal systems in place, where we also have a great deal of knowledge about the markets where our operations are located and so on. We really think PEFC is a very strong solution for Europe, and we need both schemes. We just, as an industry, we need both FSC and PFC to meet the need for certified wood.
Um, and we are discussing this topic with our customers. And in your opinion, how receptive they are to the idea of PFC being equal to FSC?
Um, I think that in principle, they are quite receptive to that. So we have the same objective, right? We want to ensure that responsibly sourced wood and pulp is used to make these products, right? And in a circular economy. And there are clear advantages to domestic sourcing, being able to use the sources of the forest in Europe close to where the production sites are, because you have multiple advantages of domestic sourcing with shorter transportation distances, lower costs, more resilience of the supply chain. You're supporting the local economy in those markets and so on. Because the flip side of that is, if you have to source from to meet a specific claim only for FSC certified material, and there's not enough in Europe, you would have to potentially even source that from South America or from other markets, maybe in future. And that obviously, from a sustainability point of view, can't be the solution that we're looking for, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now I would like to transition to a topic of a fresh versus recycled material. This is often a topic. This is also a point of conversation with customers, and we often hear customers say we prefer to use fully recycled fibers for our packaging. Is this an optimal way of doing things?
As with all things, next to it depends, I think I always say that, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. um, Both fresh fiber and recycled fiber have a role to play. Yeah. So the easy answer is to say we just take recycled and then we know we're good, and that's it. But it's a common misperception to assume that recycled products always have a better performance, particularly if I think about the fact that when you recycle fibers, you can recycle them 5 to 7 times in practice, and then after that, the fibers start to they degrade with each cycle, and they lose a little bit of their strength. Right. So you need to again think about the application. That's why I always say it depends. Yeah. You think about the application that you're doing. Do you need high strength? Do you need certain hygiene requirements so that you know exactly what's gone into that paper, and so on? So that's why there are some applications where fresh fiber is just the better application. It's the one thing. The second aspect is the what I call the integrated fiber cycle, right? So as I said, after recycling, the fibers degrade, they lose strength, and so on. So you do need, at a certain point, you need an influx of fresh fiber into the cycle. So if people said, I only want to use recycled fiber, number one, there wouldn't be enough quantity. And number two, at a certain point in time, that fiber would no longer be viable to use and the whole system would stop, right? And also from a carbon impact, I would also caution people to not assume that recycled will always have a lower carbon impact than fresh fiber. Again, it depends. It depends on where those products are being made. It depends on the energy demand and the impact of that energy. So fresh fiber has a higher energy demand. You need more energy to make the product. That's true. But it has that integrated system. So the energy can come from biomass, which is low carbon energy. So you're less reliant on external fuels, fossil fuels that might have a higher carbon impact. Yeah. So and the reverse is true for recycled. You need lower energy demand, but you don't have that biomass in the system automatically. So therefore you have to buy external fuels, which could have a higher impact. So in our own operations, I can say that we have sometimes recycled papers that have a lower impact than fresh fiber, and sometimes it's the other way around. So there is no generic claim that can be made on that either.
However, at least from our perspective, we can always help customers do the calculations and understand what is the impact of fresh or recycled fibers. This is correct, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And there is a public perception, of course, out there, right? For people that are, I'd say, still scratching at the surface, but looking for to do the right thing. There is a general perception that recycled paper is generally always better than fresh fiber. Yeah. Um, yeah. I'm not sure. I don't agree with that opinion because I know the facts, but that is a perception out there that also customers have, right? But
Exactly.
that's also, yeah, yeah.
And also, it's a matter of education. This recycled is better also comes from the consumers. Our customers are also paying attention what their consumers are looking after and what they are requesting of them in order to be more sustainable. And then our customers are asking of us for, in this case, recycled material. So the education of all the parties in the value chain is essential. And whose role is to educate the consumers?
I think it's all of us, right? We're all consumers at a certain point in our in our lives as well. Of course, as a manufacturer, packaging company, we don't have that direct access to the consumers, but we have to work through our customers and support our customers to have the right messages to the consumers. We'll also be getting more legislation in terms of the green claims guidance coming in future. Also looking really to be much more, I'd say, strict about any sort of claims that companies are making and what you have to put on the packaging. Again, that's still evolving, so we don't have all the details yet, but I think that will be a positive in the long run for us. So yeah, to inform consumers, it's hard, but from a systems point of view, holistically thinking, of course, recycling is important, reuse is important. All of those things are important, but we need to understand the impacts and where the levers are to drive progress. And in this case, the solution is not to only switch to recycled paper.
Susan, I would like to now transition to another important topic, which is a PPWR. A big part of the regulation focuses on e-commerce packaging. What is discussed currently regarding e-commerce packaging within the PPWR, and where do we stand with the discussion and regulation?
Yeah. On the PPWR, I would just start the conversation by saying everything is still evolving, right? So this is the status that we know today. We know there were more than 3,000 amendments that were submitted on the PPWR legislation. So that was unheard of, I think, in the past. But as things currently stand on e-commerce, we know there are targets for reuse. Yeah. So for reuse for non-food items in e-commerce, a 10% should be from reusable solutions by 2030 and 50% by 2040. So they have to be reusable in a system for reuse. Yeah. And for boxes for grouped packaging, which currently excludes cardboard, but again, I hear that is up for debate again. It's a 10% reuse target by 2030 and 25% by 2040. So that's one aspect on reuse. The other is the void space ratio. So there's a maximum 40% void space or empty space ratio, sort of falls under, I guess, packaging minimization as well for e-commerce packaging. I don't know that that void space ratio is the biggest challenge. I think we've all been working in that direction anyway, to in terms of material efficiency and so on, also cost implications across the supply chain, and also consumer perceptions to have the right size packaging. And I think we're working in that direction. But reuse is another ballgame for us, is another whole challenge, I think, for our whole sector. It's not something that any one company will be able to solve. Yeah. We're going to have to collaborate across the supply chain, develop completely new innovative solutions and systems to make that work.
Got it. And what implications will our customers have due to the PPWR?
Our e-commerce customers are looking for solutions, I think. I know, and when it comes particularly to the challenge around reuse. How do we make that happen? And so it really is a question of innovating a solution across the supply chain in terms of making that happen. But it also has that customer, or I'd say consumer education piece in there. So we don't even know how many rotations are required yet under the legislation. It's not defined. There's discussions anything between 20 and 200 rotations, right? So in terms of durability and all of that, you need to solve that, I'd say, almost inherent contradiction between durability and material efficiency. You want to use renewable materials, but the legislation, by favoring reuse, will definitely be supporting more use of rigid plastics, which is what we've been trying to move away from for many years now. So lots of question marks, but I think we're really going to have to work together and collaborate as effectively as possible, and yeah, blue sky innovation to come up with the right solutions that we need here.
Exactly, and also from the conversations with the largest e-commerce customers, they are already ideas, actually even more than ideas. Some of them already started doing some tests, small tests, and then one common thread among all of them is something that you just mentioned, is that this. We will need if PPWR stays with the reusable targets that they are proposing at the moment, we will have to redefine the way we do things at the moment. It is going to require an effort from the whole supply chain and the value chain to basically transition in this direction.
Exactly. So we
Yeah.
know the direction of travel. We just don't know all the details yet.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. Susan, so the idea of this webinar is to have a conversation for half an hour. We are now a little bit over, so I would like to say once again, thank you very much for taking the time for another interesting conversation, and I found it educational and informative, and I'm sure that our viewers will also find it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.